Okay, today, 5th grade, we're on our last lesson for Chapter 9, 911. I can divide a decimal by a decimal. So now we have a decimal divided by a decimal. First step, as in the previous section, we're going to set it up. 4.536 divided by 0.9. And then we're going to do our estimate. 4.5 is about 5 divided by 1, which is about 5, which is exactly 5 actually, our estimate. But our estimate is about 5. Then we're going to go into the problem, dive into the problem. We're going to save that estimate for later. So if we remember from the last video, whenever we are dividing by a decimal, it's not the funnest thing to do. So we want to change it right away. We're going to change it right away. Multiply this by 10, move the decimal point. Multiply this by 10, move the decimal point. So our new problem is 45.36 divided by 9, because our decimal point's right there. Makes it a much more manageable problem. And then we're going to start setting it up. We have our box, and we have 45.36 divided by 9. Looks like a really tough problem once we look at it, but you'll see that it actually works out pretty slick. Pretty straightforward problem. We'll get the rest of this stuff out of the way and we'll come back to that. So our first step actually when dividing by decimal, when we have a decimal, is always write that decimal in down the side. And then we're going to go into our division. So how many times does 9 go into 4? We can't do that. How many times 9 go into 45? 9, 18, 27, 36, 45. So that's 5 times, and that's right in our one spot. So I'm going to put a 5 and a decimal point, kind of as a placeholder. 5 times 9 is 45. Placeholders will be zeros. Subtraction, 6, 3, and then 0, 0. Now our new problem is 36 hundredths divided by 9. Well, I know 9 doesn't go into 3, but it goes into 36 4 times. Now the key part here is, where are we going to put that 4 out here? Where are we going to put it out here? Well, we're doing it into 36 in the hundredth spot, so we're going to say 4 hundredths. So we're going to say 0.04, because 4 hundredths, and then do our multiplying and we get 36 hundredths. Then do our subtraction, we get 0, 0. So we're done with this part of the problem. Now we have to add up over here. Add up, we get 5.04. And then our last step, we're going to zoom out. We're going to check our estimate. So our answer we got was 5.04, and our estimate was 5. So it's actually really close to the estimate, so it's a reasonable answer. Now if we would have gotten an answer like, let's say, 50.4, and we compared that with our estimate, those aren't even close. So we might want to redo the problem if you get something like that, if your estimate is way different than your actual answer. But since we didn't get that, and we got 5.04, then we know it's a reasonable answer. So when you're dividing a decimal by a decimal, you want to first do an estimate, 5 divided by 1 like we did here, and then move that decimal point so that you're not dividing by any decimals. You might end up with a decimal right here, but you don't want to end up with any over here. And then we're going to set up the problem like we did right here, and then write that decimal point down so we don't forget about it. And then do the division part, add up over here, compare it with your estimate, and make sure it's reasonable. And that's how you divide a decimal by a decimal. And we are done with Chapter 9 now.